It was Philadelphia, alone of America's colonial cities, that Quakers, Jews, Catholics, and Protestants experienced the difficulties and discovered the possibilities of a fruitful coexistence that the American democracy had to offer. Philadelphia is a city that not only tolerated but welcomed diverse modes of religious practice from its very beginning. And that diversity is still evident today in the old Philadelphia congregations. And these are a consortium of historic churches, such as the church that we're seeing, Old Swedes, one of the oldest churches in Philadelphia and in Pennsylvania, that the freedom of worship mandated by William Penn in 1701 under his idea of the Charter of Privileges that ensured that Philadelphia made significant contributions to America's religious history. Philadelphia is the birthplace of the Methodist, German Reformed, Episcopal, and African Methodist Episcopal churches in America. It is here that the first American bishop was named. The Hebrew Bible was first translated here into English, and the first General Assembly of the Presbyterian Church in America was held. And in the 1730s, Philadelphia was the only place in the British Empire where a public Catholic Mass could be celebrated. In other words, Philadelphia's religious history is the nation's own religious history. And here we can see a beautiful view of this old Swedes church, the area around here. Old Swedes, that's the church you're seeing here, is the oldest church building in Pennsylvania, and the initial congregation was descended from Swedish Lutheran colonists who came to New Sweden in 1643. They came as a Christian community, bringing their own pastor, who went by the name Jacob Fabricius. The baptismal font, which is still in use, and the decorations for their church, including the large carving of a cherubim and the Bible on the front of the organ loft. The first parishioners modified a wooden blockhouse on this site that you're seeing right here for worship in 1677, and it was replaced by the present brick church in 1700, using a Flemish pattern of bond and black headers. And the tower itself was completed in 1703, as were the two transept-like additions added to the north and south walls for support. And after the War of Revolution, that's our war, Revolutionary War, the Swedish Lutheran congregation in the U.S., which was comprised of 6 in total, received permission from the Bishop of Uppsala, Sweden, to elect their own pastors, and most joined the emerging Episcopal Church immediately. And Gloria Dei did not do so until 1845. That's the church you're seeing here. And following the death of Nils Collin, the last Swedish missionary, Jehu Curtis Clay, an Episcopal priest, was elected pastor. And under his leadership, the congregation underwent a major renaissance. Growing attendance required an increase in seating capacity. And in 1846, major changes were made. A new balcony was added. The floor was raised, probably because of the moisture problems. Wainscoting, that's where they put wood on the wall to kind of help protect the wall, was added to the interior of the walls, and the original casement windows were replaced by the present double-hung sash. And 2 windows were added to the second floor to provide the light to the new balcony. And the present stained glass window behind the pulpit was installed. A new rectory and sexton's house was built in the 1830s. The parish hall itself dates from the 1860s, and the new building on Water Street dates from the 1960s. And during the ministry of Dr. John Craig Roke, that's 1933 to 1972, Glorious Dei, Old Swedes, that's the church you're seeing here, was designated a National Historic Site in 1942, and Congress authorized the National Park Service to make the appropriate improvements to the environs of the church. And to that end, the properties to the north and to the south of the church were purchased in the 1950s, and existing structures were moved in the 1960s, and the present landscaping and walls were added in the 1970s. Gloria Dei, and again, that's the church you're seeing here, though remains an independent institution of the Episcopal Church, funding its own programs and maintaining its own property. It has a small but active community that continues to worship behind these walls. And here is the main part of the offices for the Old Swedes Church. Right next to the offices are other buildings that are part of the congregation. You can see here the other buildings and the church itself with the spire. And what's always great is 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 300 years ago, they liked to bury people right next to the church so that people could see their loved ones. And this is part of the Old Swedes Church here. You can see everything here. And a wonderful wall blocking everything in. And as I mentioned earlier, these properties were purchased by the government for the church, for the historic grounds that the church has. See the other buildings in relation to the front-facing or street-facing building that we saw earlier. This is the part that the federal government purchased a while back. You can see that they purchased it because there's nothing here. And where they do have the construction and where they do have other things is the graveyard here. We had taken an earlier view of the graveyard. You can see here, to put everything in context, the larger building that's there, daycare center. Just so peaceful. Now here is a closer view of the church. And what's magnificent about this whole self-contained area is how you have walls all around here, and it's a self-contained community. Of course, you know, it's a church, parish house, probably guest house, but look at how beautiful this is. Such a big area with an active parish. That's very important to remember. So it's not like you have an old historic church and no one's going there. And you have all these tombstones around here. So they have almost an inherent responsibility to take care of the graves, to make sure everything is okay, from the 1600s till now. Though the buildings have changed slightly, the responsibility is still there. Just a beautiful, idyllic location. Now, this is the beautiful church that was spoken about earlier, Glorious Dei. You can see how it's still active. Parishioners are here on Sundays. What a beautiful congregation. And this is for other people in Philadelphia to know about this church. Like I've seen how it's very low key, but it's very nice to know about. And again, originally a Swedish church. You can see the Swedish flag there. And the American flag on the other side. Just a beautiful congregation. And there you can see the American flag. Now if you notice, the stars are from the original 13 colonies. A little touch there of something that's different. Just a beautiful congregation, beautiful church. One day when you're in Philadelphia, whether you're from the other parts of the United States or whether you're internationally coming to Philadelphia, you should pay the church a visit. It is closed on Mondays though. A closer view of the church from the southern side. We were looking at it from the western side to the eastern side. Old Swede's church. These are some more of them, more modern graves. You can see how they look a little bit more modern. You can even see the dates of them being more modern. We all pass away. We don't all pass away 200 years ago. You can see here. And again, there's the wall that you're seeing. That is about an 8-foot high wall that really allows beautiful quietness within the church grounds. National Historic Site. Now, as we turn, you're going to see a lot of cars moving. That's a major thoroughfare in Philadelphia, but that just shows you how much has changed all around here. And then on the other side of that brown brick building is the river. So that's how close we are to the river too. And the eastern side of Philadelphia is the oldest side. My theory behind that is that was closest to the river where people were able to go back and forth. On the other side of Philadelphia, this is the eastern side. On the western side of Philadelphia, there's another river, but that was more in the 1800s that there was more development there. Versus here on the eastern side, whether it's this church or a little bit further away, there's a major developments in the 1700s and 1600s because it was closer to the river that was used more as the thoroughfare. But it's just amazing when you see a church like this, how it's stayed around for such a long, long time. And here is another part of the church, right behind the main church that we were filming.